welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Sunday, everyone. I hope it's a good one. Back at it with this week's astro weather. So I'll be taking care of you guys, helping you navigate the week ahead. And this is going to be the astro weather for the week of October 27th through November the 3rd, 2024. We've got a lot going on this week. Like a lot of stuff going on. Obviously the theme of the video, the transit that I'm really going to be focusing on today is going to be Mars in Cancer in opposition to Pluto in Capricorn. I've got you covered. We're going to talk all about how that's impacting the 12 rising signs. If you stay until the end of the video, please do me a favor and like this video. Give me a thumbs up if you find it helpful. Leave me a comment. You guys can come back at the end of the week and tell me how these predictions fared for you. And make sure you click the bell button below and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Any interaction with the channel really helps the channel grow. And as you guys know, we're trying to get closer and closer to 50K. So we're well on our way. All right, so kind of the, I guess like bullet points for this week. We're gonna start off the week seeing a very sensitive Mars in Cancer trine Neptune in Pisces. It's compassionate, it's emotional, it's sensitive, dreamy, and creative, and it helps us kind of get in alignment with what our dreams are and how to go after them. Now, if we don't navigate this energy properly this week and lean into the Mars trine Neptune, we're going to kind of get caught up in the Mars-Pluto opposition, and it can be quite intense. So I encourage you guys to work with water, work with meditation, get adequate rest, listen to music, do something creative, and also consider some like prayer or spiritual work to help navigate some of this energy. It's very likely that we can be feeling a little drowsy or tired or perhaps oversleeping. That's definitely a theme that can kind of come with this transit. But we want to make sure that we are putting our dreams into action, right? Mars and Neptune trine. Now we will see a reality check. We're going to see Venus in Sagittarius come into a square with Saturn in Pisces. This generally is a quick moving transit. You'll see this for about a day or two, but it does not bode well for finances or relationships. So you guys want to watch out for that one, especially if you happen to be a Venus ruled chart. This can definitely be a time where there is kind of setbacks, blockages, delays when it comes to money and resources. There can also be some kind of discrepancy over values, and we can sometimes not be feeling the love. So relationship stuff, we don't want to push under that transit. Simultaneously, be mindful that there can be some delays with some financial stuff. We really want to think it through before we make any moves. Now, we've also got a new moon in Scorpio that'll be kind of happening right at the beginning of November. This new moon video I already put out, so if you guys haven't seen it, check it out. I'm optimistic about this new moon. I feel like it's got a lot of Mars and Plutonian energy, so it is very kind of on par with a new moon in Scorpio. What I like about the new moon is that it does promise change, and I think it's good change. We're going to see trines to Saturn, so it's going to be stabilizing. The key here is really keeping an eye on Mars and Pluto as they are opposing, and both of these planets are associated with Scorpio. So if you can manage well under pressure, and if you are open to making change, and if you are capable of kind of moving with the energies of that Scorpio new moon, being willing to transform, opening up, being vulnerable, I think we can make magic happen. But for some of us, especially the cardinal signs, late degree cardinal signs are really feeling the square this week. If you have anything in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, 28, 29 degrees, you're feeling the pinch. So be mindful of that. Now, the Mars-Pluto opposition is so critical because it's happening at 29 degrees. So this degree is known as like the Great Destroyer. It's anaretic. It's when we see some critical things happen. Mars wants to, forge forward. It wants to kind of be the first. It wants to take action. It can be combative. And in the sign of Cancer, it's very emotionally sensitive. Now, you guys have heard me talk about how this is connected to home security, right? But I've also seen an uptick of people having issues with dog bites. I've seen 3 or 4 of them this week where people have been talking about this. Attacks, right, can be Mars, and Cancer is associated with dogs. But it can be also caution in regards to water. Not only is Mars in a water sign, but at the critical degree of Cancer, some of us may be more prone to drowning or feeling like we're emotionally kind of drowning. That opposition to Pluto brings up more intensity and that pressure regarding, our relationship to people outside of ourselves, power and authority figures, and it's also trining Neptune. So these are some very, very unusual aspects that we're seeing. We will only see one Mars-Pluto opposition taking place in Cancer and in Capricorn. So this one is kind of like initiating some kind of conflict. Then we will see Pluto go into Aquarius in this next month, and Mars will be entering into Leo this week. So the other two Mars-Pluto oppositions that we will be seeing closer to the beginning of the year, and then again in the spring of 2025, will actually be in Aquarius and Leo. So this is the only one that we're going to see in these two signs. And if you guys know the storyline of what's happened with Pluto and Capricorn, it has been this complete reworking, restructuring, breakdown, building up of authority figures. It is about our career. It is about big business, government, leadership, anything that we feel like is like an authority figure out in the world or some kind of superior energy. So even if you don't have any personal planets in Cancer or Capricorn, you're going to be feeling the effects of Mars in opposition to Pluto, because Pluto is, an outer planet. It creates slow change over time. And this is the finale, the next 3 weeks of Mars, with Mars opposing Pluto, but Pluto being at 29 degrees right before it changes signs. Very, very unusual astrology, guys. So, Mars rules the North Node. So anything that's happening or going on with Mars generally brings up some tension, showing us where we need to be taking some action to activate the North Node in Aries in whichever house that it is in your chart. So, with that being said, the week kind of finishes off. We are seeing Mars entering into Leo, which I am glad to see. I think it's going to be a better transit. We're definitely over the next month going to see some opportunities to let our creativity shine, to get more active when it comes to having fun, creativity. It can be great for those of you guys who are artists, performers, or if you're self-employed. This is all about taking chances and risks and going after what the heart desires. We will also see some nice aspects taking place in the weeks ahead between Mars in Leo and the North Node. And Sag, season as well, we're going to see some trines happening to Mars. So fire trines are great. We see lots of opportunity for adventure, action, creativity, having fun. And we'll have a whole month of Mars being in Leo before it turns retrograde in December. But just remember that Mars is in shadow. So even though Mars is kind of getting a little bit more active in another area of your chart, we may be initiating and starting things that we will kind of work through, backtrack, reevaluate. Really, December all the way into March of 2025 is going to feel like things are slowing down. We have a number of retrogrades, not just outer planets, but we got a Mercury retrograde coming up. And I think that this is about really kind of wrapping up the year, reflecting on how things have gone and how we're going to be changing direction. And for many of us, we're going to feel like 2025 really begins in the spring. So don't get frustrated when you start to see things kind of slow down. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. And all of us know that the spring of 2025 offers us a brand new, fresh energy as we're seeing planets emerging into Aries and outer planets, all kind of changing signs happening spring going into summer. So 2025 is a very, very different vibe. Anyway, that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of what we're going to be talking about today. You guys will watch me go through the day by day. We'll take a look at the moon and kind of talk about what the vibes are for the next week. One more quick thing, horoscopes for November are already out. So if you guys want to check that out, please do. There's like over 4 hours of content, I think almost 5, where I go in depth and I talk about the transits for the month ahead for the 12 rising signs. Definitely check that out. It's really helpful to give you some insight on how to navigate some of this stuff for you personally. And I did announce this on my horoscopes, but I'm going to let you guys know also, My calendar for 2025 is done. It's done. We'll probably do like a little bit of a roll or something here so you can kind of see what's in it. But it will be coming out on November 1st. Okay, so I'm waiting for the new moon. So on Friday, you guys will see this go live on my website. Then you can go and purchase it. We are going to have this available in both print form as well as digital. If you guys have seen the last couple of years of calendars that I've done, they're pretty cool. There's a different theme each year. This is all like astro goddesses this year. I give you ritual recommendations for herbs, for incense, for different oils. I'm going to do a profile on all of the 12 signs. And this year I included something special. You guys get a 3-card tarot reading with each month. So you can scan a QR code and you get a reading and a little bit of insight from me and how to navigate the month. So we wanted to do something cool. Definitely check that out if you're interested in it. Makes an awesome gift too if you're trying to find something for an astrology lover. All right, so let's jump right into it. We're going to be talking about today, the 27th of October. So good morning and hello to all of my Sunday crew. I hope you guys are well. Let me know. I always love hearing you guys tell me what you're drinking. What coffees are you guys drinking? What teas are you drinking? I've become so obsessed with like drip coffee. And also when I was in LA this last weekend, I had like a bunch of really great coffee, stuff that had like chocolate and like oranges and things in it. So let me know what you guys are drinking. I'd love to hear. All right, so this morning we wake up, the moon's in Virgo. Raise your hand if you're already cleaning your house. I know some of you guys tell me that you listen to me while you're cleaning or running errands. But when the moon's in Virgo, it's about getting our shift together, right? It's about organization, cleanliness, health, productivity. And we're going to see some stuff kind of getting banged up a little bit throughout the moon in Virgo transit. Now, on one hand, the moon is sextiling the sun. This is the last kind of nice aspect we're going to see as things are closing out before we're getting ready to come into the new moon in Scorpio in just a few days. So I'm like, oh, cleaning, like detoxing, like purging, removing, recycling, donating. Like this is a good thing to do today. Simultaneously, when the moon is in Virgo, we're looking at Mercury, and Mercury's hanging out in the sign of Scorpio, lots of emotional depth, getting down to details, really focusing on reading between the lines, very intuitive. It's about really cutting through the BS and gaining clarity, right? This is a great placement for like research, anything revolving around, letting your intuition kind of assist you and being able to navigate communication in a much more kind of intuitive way. So Mercury isn't doing much. It is starting to come into an opposition with Uranus. You'll see this later in the month. It is creating an inconjunct or a quincunx to Jupiter. So that means that there is some information to bring in or decipher, but perhaps, we can't quite understand it yet, or we're trying to make sense of something and we need to kind of dig a little bit deeper. Jupiter makes things bigger, so it can mean that there's some big news or big stories breaking today. That's possible as well. Now, as the moon continues to go through Virgo, first thing it's going to do this morning is oppose Saturn. So this does feel a little emotionally distant and cold. There is this feeling of not being able to quite connect. So later this morning, having this feeling of something being at a distance. Saturn in Pisces is retrograde. So, Pisces does deal with self-undoing, oversleeping, drinking, drugging, all that stuff. And where we have a tendency to fear actually taking charge and, making some kind of change. So Sunday's going to be a day that you're like, no, I'm going to stay on task, right? I'm going to make sure I get whatever I need to get done today done. I'm not going to be avoidant. I'm not just going to sweep it under the rug, get everything done early. Because I feel like for most of us, if we wait around until the late morning or the afternoon, we won't get our stuff done. We're going to end up kind of dragging. We're going to delay. We're going to get kind of distracted. And it's important to kind of get up and get things going early in the morning. You'll thank me because you'll have the second half of the day to kind of enjoy yourself. Now, the moon is also coming into a square with Venus. And Venus is how we kind of indulge. It's about pleasure, love, money. So when you look at this, it's wide, but we do see a grand mutable cross taking place, which means things are changing. On one hand, we feel like there is something that is separate from us or being pulled away from us.
On the other hand, we also are longing for something, or we want companionship, we want more sweets, more affection, more connection. And then this is all feeling much bigger by the time we get to the end of the evening. So there is this energy in the air of like, are we overdoing it, right? So we could be overdoing it when it comes to eating, sleeping, socializing, but we could also be overdoing it when it comes to information, communication, working. Like, we want to practice moderation. That's really the key, is everything in moderation today. If you get up this morning and you kick ass and you get a lot of stuff done, and you're super productive, and it gets to be about 1, 2, 3 o'clock and you're like, I'm done, reward yourself, right? Take a break, watch your favorite Netflix, go hang out with your friends, do something with your kids, go and do something this evening. Have balance today, because the key is about finding balance. Now, the other thing that you guys are going to see that's taking place is now Mars is coming into a trine with Neptune. That's going to be more kind of perfecting in the evening going into Monday. But this aspect, the positive side of this aspect, right? Because trines are free flowing. It's a Jupiterian energy. So it means that it's going to kind of blow things out of proportion. It makes things bigger. And generally, it's pretty beneficial. But when you have planets like Mars, planet of conflict and war, right? Or passion, and Neptune, which can be about grand illusions or deception, or, things that can be kind of conspiracy-esque, we can see that energy of things blowing up, of people acting like hysterical and crazy, right? Like literally with Mars trine Neptune. Or it can be this positive reflection of the two signs, the higher octaves of the two signs, which is like compassionate, really sensitive, imaginative, especially when it comes to approaching your desires, drives, and motivation, right? This is Mars in Cancer. So you guys might feel like Sunday, Monday, you're a little bit more drawn to creative, nurturing, or healing pursuits. And this is all about expressing your emotions and your care for other people. So the trine to Neptune and Pisces, it amplifies our emotional sensitivity and also our intuition, our connection to the collective unconscious. It makes us more receptive to the needs and feelings of other people. And it also can bring up, for a lot of us, like idealizing romantics or romanticizing, our desires. And in some cases, it can lead to unrealistic expectations or disappointments if this is not balanced appropriately. Now, remember that the Mars connection to the North Node is saying, hey, in order to kind of do this North Node and Aries stuff, we have to be emotional, we have to be sensitive, we have to focus on our emotions, our home, our family, or the past. So a lot of this with the trines to Neptune can also be like, snip, snip. I'm letting this go with love. I'm setting it free with love, right? I'm clearing it out. I'm cleansing it out. And we have to really keep an eye while Mars is still in Cancer on the moon, because the moon is connected. It's the dispositor. So interesting that Mars is trining Neptune, saying, release it, heal, like get it out, like, cry or soak for a little bit. And then the moon is opposing Saturn. So it wants us to have healthier emotional habits. That's really what this is. Instead of just being like, I'm going to, just compartmentalize it, stuff it down and not talk about it. Or if you have a tendency to be like too emotional, or if you have, habits that you have that you participate in, when you're emotional, it's trying to get you to be aware of it and like create change, right? So that's in the air. We will see kind of the opposition to Saturn and the square to Venus really taking place most of the morning. And then what's going to happen is the moon's going to come out of square with these two. And then in the PM hours, it's going to begin to make its square to Jupiter. The square will be happening overnight, but I feel like things kind of ease up the second half of the day. We can get a lot more done. And I would just say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, stay hydrated, right? Mars trine Neptune. Don't be surprised if there's some angry crying. Don't be surprised if you're feeling a lot more creative or a lot more inspired. Be careful around water. If you know that you're going to be going to a beach, going to a lake, if you're swimming, if you're boating, like drinking and Mars Neptune aspects generally don't go well. Right? And whether this is like getting sick on a boat, or if this is like, if there could potentially be some kind of danger, right? Mars, or accidents, be very, very careful. Make sure you are aware of your surroundings, aware of the weather, wearing a life vest. Trust me on this. At some point throughout this transit, we are going to hear about a very significant drowning. All right. I don't like saying that, but that's what we're probably going to end up hearing. And assuming it may have something to do with somebody found dead in a pool at their house. So it's not just limited to oceans and beaches and, kind of lakes. And it may be something that is very wild and very conspiracy-esque, because it's going to be making those trines to Neptune. So it's going to be like, oh, this is kind of weird. This is suspicious. And the opposition to Pluto is going to be a lot of people suspecting foul play. So I have waited to say that because I was like, I don't want to put that out there, but I'm like, no, it's probably going to happen. So at some point we'll see throughout this transit something like that happen, even if we don't start to see the information of a case or something unfold until down the line. But I think that that will happen. All right, so Moon's going to keep going through, making the trek through Virgo. This takes us into Monday the 28th. And when we are waking up in the morning, the Moon is actually still kind of in a square to Jupiter. So there is this sense of like, feeling motivated to stay on task, to be on time, to get things done, to be productive. And the Moon is starting to come into a trine with Uranus, okay? So this can be a day where it's like, if we're open to making change and shifting something about our money, our resources, our values, what we're eating, right? How we're spending money, what we're doing with our finances, we can see some great stuff happen. Now, the only challenge here is that we are also starting to see Mercury getting closer and closer to the opposition of Uranus. Thankfully, it doesn't happen while the Moon's in Virgo, so it may not be like as action oriented, but keep in mind that there is this sense of kind of feeling like there is some electricity in the air all week and something's abuzz with information and like news, and we're getting ready to kind of pick up on that. Now we are going to see Venus come into a square with Saturn, and that's going to be happening basically first thing in the morning, but it's in the skies Sunday, Monday, and it's starting to kind of fade on Tuesday. So with that happening, right, and we'll actually see the Moon ingress into Libra too. So definitely the 28th is a day that you want to watch when it comes to relationships, money, and resources. So we've got Venus in a Jupiterian sign, right? So this is spicy, adventurous, creative, fun. It really loves travel and learning and information and anything in regards to like culture. And, with Venus in the sign, it loves to connect with other people. It loves socializing. It's very big on like philosophy. And this is about seeking truth in relationships and enjoying freedom in relationships and expanding your horizons through social interactions. So it's promoting this love of like adventure and learning. And it has a much more like philosophical approach to relationships in general, or it can be more optimistic about relationships, money, finances. So when we look at the square to Saturn, right? Saturn is cold, it's got boundaries, it's limiting, it's about long-term commitments. It's also going to be about responsibility, and Saturn is retrograde, right? So it's kind of like lacking a lot of these things. And the square is happening at 12 degrees, which is a Pisces degree. So it's about something going missing, someone going missing, something vanishing. It can be about hospitals. It can be about foreign places. It can also be about like immigration stuff. And Venus can be about women. Venus can be about beauty. It can be about art, anything in regards to that. So there may be stories revolving around like something vanishing, or in your life, you might be like, where did this go? Or where is this going? Certainly Venus square Saturn brings up these themes of being like, okay, are we on the same page? And Saturn squares are a speed bump. It's a stop sign, right? It's a speed check. So we slow down a little bit and we pump the brakes. Because Venus has an association with the South Node in Libra, there can be this feeling that's like, okay, is there something that's not working for me? Do I feel dissatisfied? Am I not getting what I need? Am I not gaining clarity from this relationship or this partnership in some way? And we feel dissatisfied, and we think about letting something go. Venus is also simultaneously in a superior square. So she's at the top part squaring on the left-hand side. So it basically means that she's kind of applying pressure to Saturn, and she's going like, why aren't you responding to me? Why don't you love me? Why can't we work this out? So if you're experiencing some ghosting, if there is some feelings of like, where did the love go? Or, where is this going? That is why. I never really recommend any major investments during these transits, any major aesthetic changes during these transits. engagements, anything like if you're going to be investing a decent amount of money into travel or trips, right? Sagittarius can be airports. So think like luxury upgrades to seats. It could also be a time if you're traveling and you thought you were going to get your upgrades, you may not. Or if you thought that you were going to enjoy, a trip, you may not. And it's also, I think, challenging because Saturn, is retrograde. So Saturn's not really kind of giving Venus the support she needs. Intuitively, I feel like, is it possible for love to be able to kind of conquer, hate or division or separation, right? Or even isolation. Like, do we love people even when they're going through something and we give them their space to kind of process what they're processing and let them do their thing and like hold space for them, until they're able to kind of come around. A lot of it's going to be about patience and persistence with the Venus-Saturn square. But also, this is about, are we living in reality, are we idealizing someone or something, right? And there can be cultural differences in relationships or values. There can also be philosophical differences between two people. We can see romantic escapism. I mean, certainly Venus is also going to come into a square with Neptune. So it's like we're kind of feeling like in our relationships, we're like, okay, I'm noticing this. Like I'm going to take note of what's happening right now, because if it happens again, which it might when Venus squares Neptune, then I'm going to have a problem. So watch for romantic escapism. There can be miscommunications and misunderstandings. That is very possible as well. And we can feel very inspired with Venus square Saturn, but there can also be this lack of grounding and not really feeling, stable when it comes to some of our creative kind of projects. I really feel like Saturn is about boundaries. So there can be a sense of having boundaries when it comes to love, money, and relationships with this aspect as well. Do expect that whatever the check is significant, okay? Because this 12 degrees, you guys will see down the road, this is the same degrees in which Mercury will retrograde through. So it's almost like there's going to be some financial relationship hangups, and then Mercury is going to come into Sagittarius. It will also square Saturn, and in its retrograde at the end of November into December, it's going to square Saturn several times. So we're going to have several times to kind of work it out, right? All right. So good luck with that one. Be mindful of your financial stuff, your aesthetic stuff. That's happening pretty much all day. And then we're going to see the moon come into a trine with Uranus, and that's going to be in the PM hours, kind of early evening right here, which is great for, making financial changes, schedule changes, health changes. And then all the while, we also see the moon sextiling Mercury, which rules Virgo, which is great. It's like, okay, how can we create change? What do we need to do in order to fix things and make it better? And then the moon's going to come into a trine with Pluto. So even in spite of the Venus-Saturn square, kind of midday into the evening, a very productive grand Earth trine involving the moon and the ability for us to kind of make a change, physical change. Especially if it's connected to Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. This is like money, resources, investments, stability, help, support, career, anything professional, business, right? And I kind of feel like the moon is in a decent aspect right until you get to like the kind of PM hours. So I'm Central Time, so it's going to be about 7. Then the moon starts opposing Neptune. So in the same way that we had moon opposed Saturn on Sunday, and we were like, are we going to feel the distance? Are we going to escape? We're kind of seeing the same stuff. Moon in opposition to Neptune can be about being emotional, sensitive, compassionate, but it also can mean that it's hard for us to see things clearly. We're kind of emotionally confused in a way. So that's definitely kind of hanging around on Monday night. Now this will take us into Tuesday, which is the 29th. And when we wake up in the morning, the moon is now in Libra. So something you're going to see first off in the morning is that the moon's going to start coming into conjunction with the South Node. And the South Node is associated with the moon. So South Node in Libra, past life relationships, emotional clearing, letting go of indecisiveness, maybe being complacent in our relationships, being codependent, that kind of stuff. Venus is associated with Libra. So, right when the moon's coming into conjunction with the South Node, we also see Venus coming out of that square with Saturn. So it is possible that if there's been some like relationship issues brewing Sunday, Monday, for some of you guys, it's like, and this is a wrap. And we're closing this out, right? Or I no longer feel supported in this way, remember that the moon is connected to Mars in Cancer. And what's happening with Mars? It's opposing Pluto. So a lot of people are saying, I can no longer have this kind of relationship with my family. I can no longer have this type of dynamic in my home. I can no longer continue to work side by side, with this person or work for this company. For a lot of you guys, you are facing a very big crossroads this month, right? Really all month of end of October into November, but the Mars Pluto is really saying something's got to give. And what's it going to be? There is going to be this versus that energy that you guys are going to see. And obviously, all of this is slightly square to Chiron. So it's like we kind of feel like we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. Where it's like, man, this is going to be painful either way. It's either going to hurt me, it's going to hurt somebody else, or, both of us. What do we do? And I feel like this definitely gets perpetuated a lot. You're going to see this like Wednesday. So don't be surprised if there's change in relationships. I've observed with the moon south node connection that we feel like there is just this emotional dump and we become very emotional and sensitive, and sometimes we feel like we're not in control and we're just kind of releasing things. And some of our subconscious stuff comes out to play, right? So that will be happening first thing in the morning. At this point, it is also a dark moon, by the way. So this means that this is now the moon coming into Scorpio. So we're closing things out, right? We're clearing things out. And the moon is then going to continue to keep going through Libra into the PM hours. It's not really doing much. So outside of the moon south node connection, which by the way, that in itself is a great time to be like, if I'm done with a relationship, let it be done. Like that's the day to do it. So this would be Tuesday. If you decide that you want to let something go, you want to clear something out, you want to get rid of a bad habit, or you want to heal something, awesome time to do it because the astrology is kind of working in your favor. Other than that, the only other thing that you're going to see is that as the moon is going through Libra, it is going to, well, it's actually going to be the next day. So I take that back. So honestly, Tuesday, aside from a moon south node and still feeling the Venus Saturn square, Tuesday is a little bit of like a calmer day. So we're going to take this now to Wednesday, which is the 30th, and this is when stuff's going to start getting kicked up. All right. So we've got the moon that is now sextiling Venus. Okay. So it's harmonizing with what am I learning from these changes in relationships? What is the purpose? Like, where does this give me more freedom? Or, where am I excited about the future of where relationships could be going? For some of you guys, it could be a positive transit. We have got also the Mercury-Uranus opposition taking place. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then we have got the moon that is going to come into a trine with Jupiter, which enhances travel, communication, learning, contracts, negotiations, some kind of back and forth in that regard. So I like that as well. And then the moon will oppose Chiron. So let's look at the lunar transits first. So it looks like the moon's going to oppose Chiron, which does bring up wounding. This is early PM hours, okay? Who we are in relationship, what actions we're taking in relationship, where we're with other people, and where that can heal us or that can hurt us. I like this aspect for sitting down with other people and talking about stuff and working through things, or going to a therapy appointment, or consulting with somebody and getting some feedback about something, where you kind of feel like you're out on your own and you've got somebody who can kind of step in and kind of show you. We may have some really great relationship conversation opportunities. There's an opportunity to be very diplomatic when the moon is in Libra. And it's also trining Jupiter. So I really like the 30th of just getting it all out there and being able to talk about stuff. Yes, this is also, Mercury opposed Uranus, right? And that transit in itself is, like I said, it's kind of like there's something in the air, something's buzzing, and it feels like there's some kind of information or news or shock or surprise that's going to drop. Essentially, Mercury and Scorpio, we know that it's deep. It's about deep, intense communication. This is about really, working through some of the things that we're afraid to talk about and the thought process changing or transforming in some way. Mercury and Scorpio wants to uncover truths, and it can be through psychological means. It can be through investigation. There is a tendency to have secrecy and also depth and a desire to understand the motivations of other people beneath the surface. So it's a very emotional kind of psychological placement. And I think for a lot of people, it's enhancing intuition, because at the same time, it's not just an opposition to Uranus, which is shocking. It's coming into a trine with Mars. So we're feeling more emotionally motivated. That's kind of turning our instincts on. And it's trining Neptune, which means we're more in kind of touch with our intuition, our dreams, our gut feeling. So there's a grand water trine that's happening in the skies. So, for some of you guys, I think it's about reading between the lines, and it can help us become more perceptive to like hidden motives and underlining truth. Now, Uranus and Taurus, on the other hand, this is about kind of like, change and things that are destabilized and things that are kind of like sudden. This is about innovation, unpredictability. And in Taurus, this is a sign that's about stability and comfort, and it's about material security. So this combination, it seeks to intentionally disrupt the areas of finance, resources, as well as comfort. And it does so with some, opportunities to kind of stabilize and ground things, but then it gets kind of shaken up again. And it is retrograde right now. So it means that things are actually actively kind of breaking down and kind of falling apart. Could be with money, finances, resources, banks. It could be also like earth changes, electrical things, stuff in regards to technology. And we know that Uranus and Taurus has been about technological and financial revolutions. I mean, there is a huge emphasis on revolution when we talk about Uranus, or breakthroughs, I guess I should say. And this is really connected to technology and finance, and how we're handling finances and resources. And like, are we creating more or newer stable systems? So when you have the opposition, this is tension. This is 180 degrees, right? You've got two planets that are kind of facing off with each other. And it creates tension, and it can lead to breakthroughs through conflict or challenge. So I encourage you guys on the 30th, have the challenging conversations. I'm going to dare you guys to do that. Because if you can do that, if you can have the difficult conversations, if you can kind of overcome the fear to address the elephant in the room or ask questions or discuss things, the moon trine Jupiter is going to give you more insight. It's going to allow you to learn more about other people. It's going to help you go deeper into relationships. And I feel like it can be very rewarding. Now, obviously, oppositions are clashes. So there can be this clash with someone that is outside of ourselves. It might feel like somebody is wanting to go deep and the other person is being kind of weird and like kind of secretive. It's also possible that this can be disruptive, that there can be like impulses that are coming up for some people when it comes to spending and investing and buying and all of that stuff. And like, it can be a really kind of stressful aspect where people aren't seeing eye to eye about how finances or resources are being managed. Essentially with Mercury opposed Uranus, you're going to see opportunities for sudden insights and revelations. So in that sense, it's a good thing. You might experience like a sudden flash of insight, especially regarding like deep-seated issues. Obviously, conversations could take place that take a surprising turn, or somebody tells you something that's like a secret that you like weren't expecting. And it's about revealing hidden truth, and this sparks revolutionary ideas. So it's great for brainstorming as well. Yes, there can be communication disruptions. Like literally, there can be unexpected changes in communication methods or technology. This can manifest as disrupting your usual way of communicating or receiving information. So it could be like the internet's out, I've had Uranus in opposition to my Mercury for the last 2 years, and it's been a lot of internet outages. It's a lot of like, we're doing a live, and then the internet goes out, or issues with computers or laptops. And then also days where I just feel like mentally just like fried because I feel like I'm just receiving so much information. So could we have outages with like cell phone towers and communications? Heck yeah, we could, for sure. That could definitely happen. But it would indicate that it would be either A, making people paranoid, right, Scorpio, or B, the impact that has on the banks. It's like people are freaked out. Oh my God, the power's out. How are we gonna transfer money? Or I can't log onto my banking account, or my banking app is down. Like these kinds of things may potentially be happening with that opposition. I do feel like it is about rebellion against traditional thought, because there's this urge to like break free from conventional thinking and also like communication norms in general. So it could lead to innovative ideas, but also potential conflicts with those who prefer the status quo. Just personally, I've observed that with Mercury in opposition to Uranus in these signs too, like the last year or two. Like there's always this like little voice in the back of my head that's like, don't say that, don't cross the line. And then I'll be like, I'm going to say that. And I'll say things, you know, just to like get a rise out of people, or just to like see how they're going to react. And like, I'll kind of throw something in there that they don't see coming. And sometimes, you know, for the most part, it can be kind of funny, but in other situations, it's like you say something that you don't think is going to rock the boat, and then all of a sudden it sparks something, and you're like, whoa, okay, I probably should have said that. So mind your words, be mindful. And there can be lots of financial or material insight, you know, especially given Uranus and Taurus. I think that there may be sudden changes or insights relating to finances, material possessions. Often, you know, this is pushed by innovative or unconventional thinking. So it's a lot of like, well, how can we, you know, work around the situation? Like, what options do we have? Like, how can we create new solutions? And I think the conversation has been for the last several years, people being like, you know, what is the solution for the future of money, right? You know, if we've got inflation, and if we've got also issues with war on cash, and then you've got some people that are like hog wild for crypto, and then you've got some people that are saying, oh, it's going to be metals. This is going to create lots of conversations revolving around, well, when one solution proves to be something that is not, you know, isn't going to work, right? People always say, well, we'll just go off of, you know, debit and credit, and everything will be fine. Yeah, until, you know, a bank has a glitch or it has a problem, and then you can't transact, or, you know, you have some natural catastrophe and you can't use your phone, and then you can't buy food or goods. So you'll hear people talking about the solutions for the future of money and resources. And oftentimes this has been a lot about how to solve issues with debt. And the connection and the potential and the opportunities that can be provided from updating new systems, things like cryptocurrency coming in and being able to offer solutions, you know, peer-to-peer, you know, payments, how we can kind of send things much more quickly, lightning fast, that's Uranus. And obviously we can have psychological breakthroughs. So this is also about like understanding personal or collective psychology, and really allowing that to kind of help us process and communicate our own emotional or psychological depths. So if you're like, I have to see my therapist this week, this would be a really good day for a therapy appointment, to be honest with you, because I feel like we would get a lot out of it. But as we go throughout the transit, I know some of you guys feel things like a day early. So keep in mind, there's always about a 24-hour buffer where the day before, the day of, and the day after the stuff is in play. Just try to be flexible mentally. Try to keep an open mind. Be mindful that there is going to be lots of interesting conversations and opportunities to kind of connect with people. Prepare for change of plans, right? Change of mind. Communicate with care, and also stay grounded in the midst of this transit, because it can definitely feel like some of the information is like very surprising and shocking that's kind of coming through. Now, the moon will continue to keep moving through Libra into the PM hours, so we're not really missing anything. And this is going to take us to the 31st, so this is Thursday, Halloween. And there are some freaking scary aspects on Halloween with the moon, a dark moon in Scorpio and a moon square Pluto and Mars. Yeah, that's a very scary Halloween. So the moon, when we wake up in the morning, is still in Libra. Okay, it's in the late degrees of Libra, and the moon is going to be applying to a square with Mars. Okay, and Mars is ruled by the moon. So moon square Mars is where we feel emotionally under pressure. We're being forced in some way. You know, people are being a little emotionally aggressive. They're being kind of combative. And then on the other side, we're seeing the moon coming into a square with Pluto. So this is a grand, including Chiron, this is a grand cardinal cross. It's wide, but it's there. I mean, you know, if you guys work with that 9-10 degrees, but specifically the moon is triggering a very tight T-square. So you're going to want to look at where Libra is in your chart on Thursday, because there's going to be something going on with like a relationship, another person. There's going to be some, you know, person outside of you that's going to come in, and it's going to create some tension between the two, especially if you're a late degree cardinal sign. And then midday, we will see the ingress. So then we will start to see the moon go into Scorpio, and we're coming into the dark moon. But man, first thing in the morning, moon square Mars, moon square Pluto, yikes. That is not fun. That's a lot of emotional tension and conflict brewing. Big time. So it looks like it's going to pick up the square to Pluto right around midday, and then it's going to ingress into Scorpio. And, you know, Mars rules Scorpio traditionally, conflict, war, death, destruction. Pluto is the modern day ruler which is more about transformation, regeneration, right? And being able to evolve out of pain, out of crisis. So to see the Scorpio moon ingress, so it's going to go from 29 degrees of Libra, square, go into a dark moon in Scorpio, which will be a new moon on the 1st. It's like, holy cow, guys. The 31st and the 1st are very intense days. I'm just going to put this out there right now. The moon will also be in conjunction to Juno at 29 degrees. 29, this might as well be a 29, it's almost there. Which is saying there are critical turning points in committed relationships and marriages or business partnerships, and the future of their status together, if they're going to stay together, if they're evolving, if they're separating, if they're coming together also. So it could be big turning points for committed relationships and their career and home and family. So with, Juno and the moon being the focal point, a thing to really ask yourself is, am I aligned with the right people right now? And it doesn't mean you have to be married. That's not what I'm talking about. Are you aligned with the right support system? Do you have the right business partner? Do you have the right therapist? Do you have the right kind of counselor or, somebody who's representing you, right? And what actions are you taking with other people? And where can other people be beneficial or, creating some conflict when it comes to your ability to perform at work and get things done or your home? Now, this is general because I'm talking about Cancer and Capricorn in a general sense, but you guys are going to see the opposition in different parts of your chart, and something's going to come up the 31st or the 1st with that Libra moon is basically what I'm getting at. All right, so the moon goes into Scorpio on Halloween, and it's a dark moon, and Mars is in opposition to Pluto. I mean, this is like a setup. Like, if you were to be like, what kind of astrological aspect sounds like a slasher movie, this would definitely be it. So, good night for scary movies, for sure, with Mars trine Neptune. But beyond that, this dark moon is going to be hanging around all of Halloween. And that is particularly spooky because the dark moon is like when it's like the most quiet, nothing's going on. This is generally when practitioners and people do some of their kind of ritual stuff. Personally, this is just me, and I'm not saying this to create alarm or anything, but that plus the Mars Pluto opposition, if your kids are going out on Halloween, you should probably be with them. You should probably know where they are, right? Unless these are bigger kids that are already driving and stuff. Because the aspects make me feel like mama bears need to be on high alert, right? Our motherly or kind of maternal instincts. And even if you don't have kids, if you're somebody who lives in a neighborhood, you want to be keeping an eye out, keep an eye out. Because Mars in opposition to Pluto tells me that we are going to see crime, we're going to see vandalism, we're going to see some total, Halloween type of stuff where there could be actual property damage, right? Make sure your cameras and everything are on. That on top of the fact that Mars is trining Neptune, so it's saying it's also something that's going to happen on the sly secretly. This could also be stuff where food and drinks could be spiked. Mars trine Neptune is a poison aspect. So is Neptune sextile Pluto. That's a poison aspect. And I'm not talking poison apples. I'm talking about know where your kids' candy is coming from, know whose house they're going to. If you're going to house parties and stuff, be mindful. Be mindful of what you're consuming. And then you add that on top of a new moon in Scorpio, which is dark. It's not even the new moon yet. So something is very hidden. And in my mind, this is definitely very ripe with opportunity for change. And you're going to see that especially as we're getting into the new moon. So let's take this beyond Halloween night. So it'll be the dark moon all night. Oh, man. And then on the 1st, we're going to have the new moon in Scorpio. So this is going to be happening on Friday, okay? And that new moon's going to be at 9 degrees. So that's a Sagittarius degree. That's what is the bigger picture? What is happening globally? What is changing and transforming? What are we learning about change? And big change. 9s are about big things. Everything is large. So it'll be big changes that'll happen over the immediate next 2 to 4 weeks. And then eventually down the road, when we have a full moon in Scorpio in the spring of 2025, let's talk positive. Positive is that we've got a new moon that's in a trine to Saturn. And granted, Saturn's retrograde, right? But it is Saturn, so I see Saturn as cement. So it's saying, we can actually come up with a plan. We can come up with a vision that we can commit to. We can really tap into our emotions, our intuition. Also, it may require us to let some things go, to dissolve some things, so we can start from scratch. We can start over and we can have a clean slate. The other thing that I think about is that simultaneously, while this is happening, we also have Mercury trine Neptune, so it's very intuitive, we're very receptive, we're tapping into our dreams, we're listening to what our gut's telling us. Some of us might be getting readings, maybe we're doing some journaling, maybe we're doing some like divination work. And we've also got, let's see what else. So we talked about Pluto sextile Neptune. It can be about not becoming aware of our power, and where actually if we like have a breakthrough with the power struggle, it can allow us to dissolve something and create change. And then Mars and Pluto now hit 29 degrees. So they both rule Scorpio. We have a sextile here, so we can kind of tap into being able to read between the lines, and we can kind of get really clear information and be able to make plans. But man, this is so watery. Like, how are you guys doing? Those of you guys who don't have water trines, how are you guys doing? I have a lot of planets. I have 4 planets in Scorpio. I've got Jupiter in Cancer. I've got a ton of water trines in my chart. So I'm actually doing okay. But even for me, there are some days that I'm like, I am like way more emotional than I would usually be. So those of you guys who are like all air and fire are probably like, help. But this is a pretty big water trine that's happening, where we are taking action and, going after our dreams, even if that means that we know that it's time to let something go. We're receiving those messages, we're acting on them, right? And we're not letting our emotions run us. We're acknowledging them, saying, hey, I hear you. I'm going to take you into consideration before I make a move. Now, ripe with the opportunity for change, heck yeah. I'm not just saying this because it's like Halloween, but like the 31st and the 1st is a really good day to get a reading, like a really good day, because the messages will come through, right? They say like the veil is thin. And the 31st and the 1st, we have All Saints Day, we have the Day of the Dead. And it's a day where I feel like messages will come through. Like if you can see a psychic, if you can see a medium, if you can, go to, there's going to be a lot of like seances and like weird things happening, but it may actually be very active. Like some people might get some really, really, really crystal clear messages. So if you're into that stuff, definitely consider doing it during these 2 days, because I think you'll gain clarity. You may also have just epic tarot readings that you can do for yourself as well. Or maybe there's going to be some really significant dreams that are going to start coming through. I have Mercury sextile Pluto natally, and Mercury conjunct Pluto natally, excuse me. And I've always had like really weird phenomenon stuff happen, whether it's like dreams, like whatever. In the last week, I've had some really significant dreams. I've been posting about them on X. So if you guys aren't following me, follow me on X at BTB Astro. But I had one yesterday, and it was like, and I've had this a couple times throughout my life, but I had one yesterday where I woke up and I heard somebody knocking on the front door. I have like a big wooden front door. And it was like, I sat straight up and I heard knock, knock, knock. And I was like, oh, hell no. Those of you guys know about like the spirit knocks or like the 3 knocks, like, that's just kind of like, that's an omen. That's like, hey, pay attention, or somebody's visiting or something's coming. At least that's always been my experience. But I've always had those dreams right before something really significant happens. I've only had it like 3 or 4 times in my entire life, but it happened last night. So I'm kind of like, what's it going to be? But that could be attributed to, the fact that, Mercury is an aspect to Saturn. Mercury is an aspect to Neptune. There is something psychologically that's coming through in dreams, and our intuition's kind of picking up in the sextiles to Pluto, where it's like, all the ghosty things are kind of coming out to play. So let me know if you guys are having similar stuff going on, because it's been active all week. So be open to change. I encourage you guys to be open to change. So many 29s that are kind of happening here does tell me that there is going to be like one or the other. Like you guys are going to feel like you have to either rework one area of your life in order to totally dramatically change the other. And like I said, for a lot of you guys, it's like home, relationship, like career driven, because of the signs that it's in. All right, so the new moon's going to be at 9 degrees. So if you have anything 8, 9, 10 degrees, it's very prominent for your chart. As we go through the 1st, which is Friday, not too much is happening. Looks like the moon's going to pick up a trine to Saturn right after the new moon. So the morning into the afternoon, guys, really good time to set intentions. I would actually, with Mercury and Scorpio, I would write down all of my intentions like on a piece of paper. And I would do it in like red or black ink. And I would place it in a bowl of water, Neptune. And I would just let it sit there and dissolve. And like, that's the means of like releasing your intentions, right? And what I would also do is either on the 30th or the 31st, the dark moon, is I would make a list of things that I need to clear out before I set my intentions on the new moon. And I would either burn it or bury it, right? It's a very Scorpio thing, burying things. Something obviously that is not going to cause harm to the environment, but if it's a piece of paper, I don't think it's a big deal. But maybe bury it or burn it, get rid of it, release the ashes, and then set the new intentions and then put them in water to dissolve them. And you can put some crystals or some oil or something in there, but stuff that we are visualizing or speaking into reality, or things that we are writing down and like incorporating with like water, I think is going to be really powerful. All right, so let's talk about this Mars-Pluto opposition. All right, so obviously one of the themes revolving around oppositions is challenges. So you've got, two kind of like opposing sides that are going on here. The thing that I think about is that, the new moon is really calling and asking us to initiate something new, even if it's scary, even if we don't know how it's going to play out, even if we know in order to do that, we have to end something and we don't have a plan yet. Like, that's just, you just have to kind of trust the process. You got to have faith. I think that's part of Jupiter and Gemini too. So it's positive because with some of these trines from Saturn, we can see personal transformation, we can see career shifts, we can see also that, change is coming. But by the same token, the Mars-Pluto kind of connection to Scorpio, and you're going to see the exact opposition on Saturday. So actually, let me just do that so you can see that. So this is going to go into the second. All right, am I missing anything? No, not yet. Okay, so we get into the second, and you're going to see the moon starting to come into conjunction with Mercury, so it's a good communication day on the second. These two are sextiling Pluto, and these two are trining Mars. 29, 29, 29. Big stuff happening. All right, so let's see okay, so it looks like Mercury and the moon will start to come together, but Mercury will move. That's okay. So let's talk about the Mars-Pluto opposition. All right, so the big thing for me when I think about this opposition is that you're being pulled in two different directions. So we're going to be kind of asking ourselves like, okay, do we want to do this or do we want to do that? And Mars is going to be about our direction and our motivation. Pluto is going to be about a power struggle. It's about fear. It's about pain, trauma, crime, corruption, shadow, right? And I really feel like because this is happening in cardinal signs, it's almost like the end of October, beginning of November, it's initiating something that we are then going to have to be working on for like the better part of the next couple of months as it goes into two different signs, which is going to be fixed energy, and then it goes back into Cancer, and it's going to be reworked. So are you going to cave to fear? Are you going to feel disempowered? Are you going to react out of fear, make decisions out of fear? No, these are things we don't want to do. We want to go into the new moon in Scorpio quite literally like fearless. We want to be like, what's the worst thing that could happen? It all falls apart, I start over. I mean, for some people right now, they're kind of feeling like, they've already kind of bottomed out in a situation, in a career situation, a relationship situation, a health situation, that they're like, there's nowhere to go but up from here. So if you're looking at a situation in your life like that right now, especially in the Cancer, Capricorn area of your life, you're going to have an opportunity to rework it, but don't let fear run the show. All right, so Mercury trines Mars exactly at 29. So we're able to kind of receive some really significant, important information that's going to help us kind of navigate some of these changes that we're making. We're going to see the moon oppose Uranus, which is emotionally destabilizing in the afternoon. And we're going to see Mercury sextile Pluto. So we're kind of like tapped in. Mercury will enter into Sagittarius. Okay, so Mercury is now going into the house which it will retrograde. So Mercury, when it's in Sag, it is technically in its fall because it's in the sign that its kind of opposite sign is associated with. So the positive is that Mercury and Sag, like, we're optimistic. We see the bigger picture. You know, we want to travel. We want to learn. Like, there's lots of opportunity for learning more about culture and connecting with other people. But it can have a tendency to be like too big, too grand, that it doesn't focus on the details. It can also like tell tall tales, right? It can embellish things. It can make things sound way much better than they actually are. It is not in shadow yet. And if you guys remember, or if you saw my horoscopes, I basically said the 1st and the 2nd of November, because Mercury is trining Mars, trining Neptune, sextiling Pluto, is like, those are the days to get down to business. If you're going to do anything where you're like, I mean business and I want to get my shift in order before the Mercury shadow, those are the days that I recommend doing it. All right. You got to sign contracts, plan a trip. You got to commit to something. You have to sign a lease. You have to buy a car. Anything like that you would want to do prior to the Mercury retrograde, the 1st and the 2nd. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you guys right now, once we get to the 6th, which is next week, we are already in the shadow of the Mercury retrograde, and it is going to be a shit show. 100%. Squares to Saturn is going to delay things, and it's going to be very confusing. Oppositions to Jupiter is going to be like some holy cow moments, and it is going to do both of these things several times throughout the retrograde. Okay, so Sagittarius season is not going to be great for traveling. It's not going to be great for law and legal things. It's going to be really difficult, I think, for some people who are taking college courses, or maybe you're trying to publish something, or you're trying to teach a class. I think we're going to see lots of delays with traveling. So if you guys know that you want to go somewhere, I would say book at the beginning of the week, but also simultaneously, you know, or at the beginning of the month, make sure that you guys have trip protection. Be mindful that, you know, plans most likely will change in regards to traveling. Okay. So, Mercury going into Sag, yes, we can think bigger and brighter, but this is going to be quite a messy retrograde. So Mercury going retrograde at the end of November, it's going to rework, go back and bring up the past. You have to correct something. You have to maybe talk to somebody from the past. Maybe something that's been missing comes back up. And there is a very significant process. I mean, during any Mercury retrograde, it's a process. It takes about 3-4 weeks to kind of work through something. But with oppositions to Jupiter, it's going to seem like it's a bigger situation. And then squares to Saturn and Neptune is just going to be like downright confusing. It's going to be like, we think it's this, and then it's that. And then we think it's this, and then it's that. And then we didn't know that wasn't right. It's going to be confusing. So to yourself early. Positive is that we will have expansion of thought. We'll be more optimistic and enthusiastic. Mercury in Sag loves truth seeking. So I think it's also going to be a time where a lot of people are going to be seeking the truth. I'm looking forward to hearing from a lot of law professors, history professors, you know, people who specialize in politics as well. I think we're going to be hearing a lot of people giving their input about what's going to be happening with politics and the state of law. And we're going to hear a lot about the court systems and things like that over the next couple of months because of this retrograde. I love Mercury and Sag for their directness and honesty. They're very blunt and kind of, you know, between the eyes. And there is this sense of having like a very like adventurous side to their communication. So generally during this Mercury transit, you know, traveling and learning becomes enhanced. We see that there's more opportunities for publishing and broadcasting. So for most people, it's like, yeah, this is something that would be good. But I would say, you know, and I said this in my horoscopes, I have two sides of my brain. One that's like, yes, do all of your stuff on the 1st and the 2nd because Mercury will go retrograde. You know, you're going to have the shadow that's going to be messy. And then the other side of my brain that's like, well, it's going to oppose Jupiter and it's going to square Saturn and Neptune several times. So like, why not just wait and see what happens? And then you can, you know, then you can do whatever you need to do. So choose your own adventure on that one. I think if you're somebody who's like, I do want to publish a book, I do want to go back to school, or I want to find a college or a mentor, I do want to go on a big, European trip, I would be like, wait until after the retrograde. Wait until this is done in December, see what gets rearranged and reworked, and then you can go and plan those things actually during the retrograde. You can start doing your research, putting things together, planning a trip, anything like that. And then after the retrograde, you can kind of make your decisions and kind of put it together. So unless you really can't wait, then you need to kind of strap in because it's going to be a bumpy flight. Especially if you're trying to do like legal matters or anything like that. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to become very overly optimistic with this transit. The squares to Saturn is like, that's not a big deal. And then, you move ahead with something and then it's like, oh, actually that was a really big deal. That was like a really big error, and we like, now it's going to be more costly, or now it's going to become a little bit more challenging to kind of correct. But definitely with planets going through Sag, Venus is there as well. It's about embracing learning, and it's also about being open-minded. And I would just say really mind the details, not because of the shadow, but because Mercury in the sign is not very detail-oriented. We have a tendency to overlook things. All right, so then we're going to keep going, and this is now bringing us through to Saturday night. Looks like that moon is coming into a trine with Neptune, so kind of magical, intuitive, sensitive, dreamy, right? I mean, when the moon's in Scorpio, you guys have to understand, it's like, there's a sign that the moon does not feel comfortable there. It's going through the sign that deals with like, Mars, Pluto things, death, passion, sex, fear, regeneration, just all of these things where we're having to kind of deal with the nitty gritty of life. I feel like that the new moon for some people can, obviously given the aspects, feel intense, but this is where that starts to kind of like dissipate. We're like, oh, okay, we can kind of breathe now. So Saturday night, things get a little bit easier. And let's see. So then it looks like the moon will sextile Pluto late in the evening, go into Sagittarius. We wake up on November the 3rd. And this is where we see the Moon Mercury conjunction very early in the morning. So now we're looking at Jupiter. Okay, guys, we're watching Jupiter because Jupiter is connected to Sag. And this is going to be an interesting day. So the moon conjunct Mercury means maybe it's a more chatty, kind of communicative morning. But if we're looking at Jupiter, Jupiter's down here. So Jupiter is now the dispositor for Mercury, the moon, and Venus. And Venus is opposing. Okay, so what's going to happen on the 3rd? What's going to go down there? This is going to be something revolving around like a woman, Venus in Sagittarius, or something connecting to women or art or beauty or femininity. And then the opposition to Jupiter is like something that's like more masculine and like kind of communicative. By the way, this is also in Gemini. So I'm like, oh, is there some like really big like Trump Kamala thing happening, or is there like some, obviously there's a rival, they're running against each other, but are we going to hear like she did this on, this day, or that or whatever, or like she said this about him, or vice versa. Something like that might come up. I do think that, I'm not mad at a Venus-Jupiter opposition though. This is about big love, big opportunities, love at a distance, the opportunity to overcome our cultural, religious, spiritual differences. This is about really believing in like big love stories and romance. And yeah, we can overdo it for sure. Venus, Jupiter, we can definitely overdo things. So you want to be mindful. You'll be probably feeling a little bit more indulgent on Sunday the 3rd. But I think that this is about talking about what we love, right? Jupiter rules all this, writing about what we love, sharing what we love, talking about, like togetherness. And like people are going to be feeling like very, very, very social on Sunday the 3rd. Also, we're going to see Venus trine Chiron, so we can actually tend to some of our wounds. We can share with other people where we've been hurt, and we can kind of inspire other people with our words, and we can share about our trips and travels and places we've been, and our philosophy maybe on like love and relationships can be like very helpful and very healing for a lot of people, right? This is then when Mars and Pluto are in exact opposition on the 3rd. So you're kind of feeling it from about Halloween, but it won't be until the 3rd that it's going to be exact. And then we are going to see the Sun in Scorpio start coming into a trine with Saturn, which is a stabilizing day. Like, my God, Sun trine Saturn, we feel solid, secure. We are now accepting of the change. We are open to it. We're releasing and letting go of the past. We're ready for what's new. Venus in opposition to Jupiter, we are hopeful. We're excited. We see, opportunity and fortune and, better relationships on the horizon. And then it's like, oh, Mars, Pluto. Whew. Yeah, Sunday's a big day. I don't know what's happening, but it's going to be a big day. And then we're going to see, obviously, that Mars will ingress into Leo, and you'll see that later in the evening. So that's going to be right around here, right at the end of the night. Mars goes into Leo. Now, I'm going to do a whole separate video on this week. If you guys saw my Mars in Cancer video, I took you all the way up into this point. I basically was like, we're going to talk about Cancer, and then when Mars goes into Leo, I'll do a Mars in Leo video, and then we'll do a retrograde video. So I'm going to kind of break it up so it's more digestible. Much better placement, especially considering when Mars goes into Leo. Okay, it's still in opposition to Pluto, but when it goes into Leo, the sun is trining Saturn at a 12. This is about a change in leadership. And it can be something involving an older male leader. I'm not saying it has to be the United States, but some kind of change in leadership is being indicated, or one person stepping away or stepping down or dissolving in some capacity. Or it could be somebody, who is sick, or ill or dying. I don't like saying that, but these are kind of terminal houses. And then at the same time, Mars is now in a trine with Mercury, which is connected to Jupiter, right? So it's going to be some kind of news about leadership, Mars and Leo, and news pertaining to that, and, something going one way or the other. Remember that Mars in Leo is about leaders. And I think the retrograde in opposition to Pluto it's going to be about, is there some kind of global agenda, right? Is there some, groups or parties that want specific things? Or are there some older, people who are trying to maintain power, who have been at the tops of companies, or who have been in positions of power in politics, or, just positions for a very long time and they don't want to let it go? And then Mars goes into Leo, and it's like fresh, young blood. These are young, new leaders. These are people who are charismatic and bold, and they have this very regal, like kingly energy. So it's going to be people coming in being like, I don't want to do what you guys are doing. I want to do what I want to do. And like, I've got ideas, and this is how I think it's going to work. And so it's a very bold energy. So with Mars coming into a trine with Mercury right off the bat, to me, that's just kind of like words in action and being optimistic and being like, we can make this happen. I think you're going to see a lot of younger leaders and people coming out being like, yeah, we need to come together. We have a plan. We need to be optimistic about the future. And I feel that energy is starting to rise personally. I feel like there is less people being like panicked and, oh my God, what are we going to do? It's the end of the world. And, everybody's, screwed. I kind of look at this and I'm like, no, you're going to see a lot of people who are really going to step into their power over the next couple of weeks. And they're not going to have a problem saying what's on their mind and sharing what's on their mind. Kamala Harris is a Gemini rising, okay? And Trump is a Gemini with a Leo rising. So having the oppositions, this is going through Kamala Harris's 7th house, in opposition to Jupiter retrograde, and also squares Saturn. She's having other semi-squares and other things going on. And watching Mars go into Leo is like, there's definitely going to be a lot of feedback on like the 3rd about what's going on with her opponent, because this is her 7th house. And for Trump, this is all going through his 4th house. So it's going to be things revolving around his private life, his home, his family. I don't know. I'm not saying it has to do with these people, but I really feel like just knowing, I'm filming this. What is today? I'm filming this on the 25th. Knowing that the Joe Rogan podcast is coming out pretty soon, part of me is like, man, is he going to drop this podcast potentially like right before her speech or the day of her speech or something? I think her speech is supposed to be the 2nd. But it does look like there's going to be some very big back and forth from both of the transits and how they're kind of impacting their charts. So I'm going to be kind of curious to see how that goes. Watch for bold, confident action. If you've been wanting to take risks, have more fun, get out there, have playtime, be creative, get more active in your hobbies, especially sports or anything like physical, this would be the time to do it. This is also giving us more courage to be creative, to express ourselves. And I think it's also not just physically, but in creative or romantic pursuits. So we might feel more inspired to lead with our heart, and we're making like bold statements through actions or through art. Got to watch the ego and the pride a little bit. Definitely Mars and Leo amplifies the ego. So, it can definitely make us more aware of how actions are being perceived. There is this drive to be recognized, and I think it can be motivating, but also a little challenging to keep the ego in check for some of us. And I think that, you know, Mars in Leo, it's generally a very loyal placement. It's also a very generous placement. So even though sometimes they can be self-focused, like there is a sense of having a lot of loyalty for the people that they care about, and they're very generous and affectionate with people that they love. It might inspire a lot of people to be more focused on romantic pursuits, and, you know, we might see grand, passionate gestures kind of going on in relationships. And there can be like a more theatrical or kind of like romantic flair to relationships as well. So it's a bit wide, but, you know, Mercury, the moon, Venus, Mars, we've got a really nice fire trine that's taking place on November the 3rd on Sunday. So use the Mars ingress to your advantage. It'll be between 0 and 6 degrees between now and the beginning of December. So if you, obviously if you're an Aries or a Scorpio rising, you're going to feel this change. If you are a Leo placement, you're going to feel this change, especially like the first 10 degrees or so. And Mars will be there kind of working on things. But remember, guys, remember, it will retrograde, okay? So in December, it's going to go back into Cancer. And when it retrogrades, it will then be opposing Pluto in Aquarius. So it's like right now, you're initiating some major change between Capricorn and Cancer in preparation to then go back. And when it goes back, it'll oppose Pluto in Aquarius. So there's almost like two oppositions that are kind of getting worked out throughout this transit between now and the spring. Wild. I like that, you know, it'll probably bring up more opportunities to be a leader. We're going to feel more ambitious. We're going to feel more creative. Lots of physical activity with some of the trines. So you might see that there's a surge in energy for like sports, dance, or anything where you can be performing or kind of shining. But Mars in Leo can bring up romantic conflicts. So relationships can experience more drama if the ego or desire for attention is imbalanced, and it can be very passionate but potentially a little volatile, especially with oppositions to Pluto that might arise. I have found that there is like this very kind of childlike joy quality that comes up for Mars and Leo in transit. So really get out there and enjoy yourself, play, have fun. You know, think of like the lion's kind of like playful nature, you know, where can we take more action and kind of like going after what's going to bring us joy, or like what's going to kind of wake up the inner artist or the inner child or like the inner lion. Just watch for stubbornness. Sometimes there can be an overemphasis on appearance with this transit as well. And dealing with bouts of like excessive pride, right? We want to kind of catch that. Lead with your heart, embrace creativity, and definitely be having fun. That's the one thing that I would recommend. So stay tuned. We'll have that video pretty soon. I'll be talking to you guys. We'll look at Mars going through Leo for about a month and the aspects it's going to make, and then we'll talk about the retrograde. Now, I want to talk to you guys about the opposition between Mars and Pluto. So this is over with the week. We've looked at the weekly, but I do want to take you guys through the opposition that you're going to be experiencing the beginning of November. So let's do that. All right. And I'm a Western astrologer. I practice whole sign Western astrology for my videos. If you're a Placidus user like me, then you're going to want to look at where 29 degrees of Cancer and 29 degrees of Capricorn are, and you may have to listen to another rising sign, okay? I'm going to talk to you very specifically about Mars and Pluto in opposition, what this means for you in this next week, and what you want to kind of think about as you're navigating this particular aspect. Now remember, Mars in Cancer, emotional intensity, okay? This is all about action, desire, and aggression, and it's filtered through emotional sensitivity. It's about protection and nurturing. So it can make us feel a little defensive. We can be feeling a little bit more protective. It can manifest as emotional assertiveness and a strong tendency to kind of like want to safeguard things that we care about. And then we've got Pluto in Capricorn, which is almost done. So, you know, power, sometimes destruction that paves the way for rebirth. And we've got both of these planets that are in 29 degrees. So they are trying to destroy each other, or they're trying to destroy something in regards to the house that it's in. You will see authority issues come up this week. You will also see that there's big outer world changes that are happening with these planets at these signs. I think it's about dealing with issues of control. What can you control? What can you not control? What do you decide to kind of release control over, or, you know, decide that you no longer want to allow to have control over you? So we're undergoing profound changes, potentially in career, reputation, or societal roles, because Pluto is in Capricorn. Now we see the tension from the opposition. In my mind, you know, I think that, you know, it's a clash between personal and emotional needs, Mars and Cancer, with the broader kind of societal or authoritative desires that oppose our ambition, right? Or our external responsibilities. So, you know, in layman's terms, this is like crisis and growth, right? 29 degrees opposition, and obviously it'll retrograde. So this aspect brings a crisis, not necessarily negative, but definitely transformative. And it's forcing us to confront, you know, where we have to integrate these two opposing forces in our life. And it could lead to breakthroughs and like the understanding in our own emotional depths versus like societal roles. So like I said about that 29 degrees, you know, it's very critical. It's considered like a turning point, a part of culmination where we are learning a lesson. And that sign must be integrated before we move on to the next thing. So we call this the anaretic degree. Pluto will be moving forward. It's been in and out of 29 degrees all year. Bye, I'm over it, it can leave. But Mars will come back to 29 degrees several times. So in my mind, I feel like something is coming to a pretty dramatic permanent change in Capricorn that's going to have some several month-long unfolding ripple effect to Cancer as Mars goes in and out of, you know, Leo and Cancer, and it'll hit 29 several times between now and April. So Mars at 29 degrees of Cancer, you know, there's an intense need to finalize emotional battles or secure emotional foundations before moving into a new phase. That's where we're going to be doing most of our work, by the way. Pluto's almost done. Pluto at 29 degrees is suggesting a period of intense transformation regarding career, our roles out in the world, our personal authority. And this is now reaching like a climax where old structures or way of being has to be shed and like transformed radically. So what to expect? Emotional power struggles, transformation, opportunities for deep emotional work, right? Especially because we're going to feel this push towards psychological introspection. Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn is these long-standing issues and how I can gain, you know, insight psychologically into it. Also action and reaction. For every action, there's a reaction. You guys have heard that, right? So with Mars in opposition to Pluto, it's like, you know, if there is a lot of drama going on or a lot of conflict with the family, you know, that could be like one fight could totally rework something about a whole family dynamic and relationships. You know, one job change could change everything for, you know, your family and your living situation. There is a sense of like totality when you're dealing with 29 degrees. So be mindful that, you know, when Mars is involved, there's action and it's reactive and defensive. And with the opposition to Pluto, it's like if you're acting in just like raw emotion or like rage, like it's going to have major consequences. Very, very rare to see an opposition in these degrees at the same time. It's not typical. So you don't need an astrologer to tell you that the events that are kind of going on in the world right now feel very not so typical, right? But this is just adding a little bit more fuel to those flames. So it's a profound period of transformation. And I think that this is about collective and personal transformation. You know, the intensity that comes from this transit and the lessons that it brings, the pressure of how you're going to react and respond to change. That's what the new moon in Scorpio earlier this week was all about. And I do feel like, you know, you're going to see society shift where, you know, personal emotional revolutions are kind of taking place. They're mirroring the larger global changes in power structures that are going on. So the micro and the macro are kind of reflecting back to each other. Yeah, it's gonna feel like a very tumultuous dance, but also a very potent time for, you know, working through these challenges and like really urging us to reconcile emotional integrity with the demands of like the external world. That's really what it kind of comes down to. So with that being said, I'd like to show you where this is happening for the 12 rising signs. Listen for your rising sign first, okay? Because this is going to tell you which house Mars and Pluto are in. Obviously, this is very, very, very significant for for everybody. But if you're a Mars rule chart, so if you're an Aries or a Scorpio rising, you're feeling this one. If you're a Scorpio rising, you're also ruled by Pluto. You're feeling this one. 28, 29 degrees of the cardinal signs. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, you're feeling this. The squares are going to promote some significant change. And my early degree fixed signs, if you happen to be like 0 to 1 degrees, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, because it's within a degree, you're feeling this as well. And guess what? Get ready, because Pluto's going into Aquarius soon. So when the Mars square starts happening, you're really going to be feeling it. So the only people who are really kind of getting a break, to be honest with you, are like very, very, very few signs. You're going to see some signs that are really going to benefit from these changes, and then others that are just going to like feel it. But I think we're all going to feel it personally. All right. So let's start with Aries and Aries rising. All right. So Aries, you're ruled by Mars, right? So Mars is slowing down right now. So it is going through territory, which it will retrograde back through. With Mars in Cancer, the last final moments, it feels like it's about home versus career, the opposition of Pluto in your 10th. Pluto rules joint resources, money, and kind of like change and transformation. And then the 4th house is like home, family, the past. It could be your home country. It could be your emotions. It could be one of your parents. It could be your living situation. So you're feeling this tug of war, and it's between your career or your ambitions, right? And you're also your need for personal or family time. And this could manifest as significant changes in your home or potentially even your life, and it's impacting your status or vice versa. So the action that you take at home and how that impacts work, or the changes that you're making at work and how that impacts home. One's going to influence the other. Just remember that Mars is going into the 5th house. So this is great for creativity, children, romance, and dating, but it will retrograde back into the 4th. So I'm kind of wondering, like, are you creating a creative space, right? Are your children moving back in with you? Are you changing your home because you're going to be getting married? Are you potentially, changing your home because you're changing your job? Something's going on here, right? And the topics in the area of children, romance, creativity, self-expression are going to play out in a very big way within your home base because of that retrograde. So the question is, what's going to give, right? What's going to give? That's what you need to ask yourself. Does the change need to come from who I am out in the world, or is the change happening from where I'm at emotionally with my home or with my family? All right, so next we've got Taurus and Taurus rising. Taurus, you've got Mars and Cancer in your 3rd house. It's coming into an opposition with Pluto in your 9th house in the sign of Capricorn. Both Mars and Pluto deal with your 7th house of relationships. So there's definitely lots of themes in regards to relationships and partnerships. And Mars is also connected to the 12th house of the subconscious, the unseen, things you don't see coming. This is going to feel like it's about communication versus beliefs. Your way of communicating or your local environment might clash with the broader life philosophies or educational pursuit. So there can be like this intense discussion that can come up, or it can be a learning experience that really challenges something about your beliefs. Be mindful of law, legality, traveling, signing things, contracts, all of that stuff, especially with other people. Be mindful of how you're communicating and connecting with other people. It could be your partner, it could be your neighbors, it could be your siblings, it could be a teacher or a mentor, but there is some kind of intense back and forth kind of conversation that's going to be kind of going on. Good luck. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mars in Cancer in opposition to Pluto in Capricorn in your natal 8th house. For you guys, Mars is kind of connected to your goals, the money that you make from work, friendships, organizations, networks, as well as health, habits, coworkers, and routine. Okay, so this is about maybe organizing your finances, what your financial goals are, what changes you're making with your work, and also your habits. And Mars is in the 2nd house of your personal resources, your spending power, and it is opposing Pluto in the 8th. So this is like my money, other people's money, my values, other people's values, the money and the things that I own and, what I buy, and the debt that I have, or the money that I have invested or with another person. And it can also very much be about kind of possessions versus intimacy. So financial or self-worth, Mars in the 2nd, could be in conflict with deeper psychological transformations or issues of intimacy and shared resources, Pluto in the 8th. This might involve like a deep dive into shared finances or psychological intimacy and like learning to be more vulnerable and open when it comes to talking about your feelings or your financial situation with another person. And it looks like there may be some like reorganizing or like reassessing things. Keep in mind, Mars will go into the third house and it'll retrograde. So I get the impression that some of you guys might be like changing direction with your spending habits, or maybe you're changing directions with like a purchase, a big purchase. So it could be like a car or a gadget or something like that. And there may be an emphasis on like saving more money, spending less, paying off debt, or talking to your partner about like money management. Okay. Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to have Mars in your sign in the first house opposing Pluto in the 7th in Capricorn. Watch out. I would say cool your jets. Just like take a breath, because the transits can be quite intense for you with Mars in your sign. You might be feeling like very emotional. You might have a little bit more pep in your step, a little bit more reactionary. You can be a little bit heated, right? Have an outlet. Stay active with this opposition, because this is going to be about you and what you're doing and what you can accomplish and what you're in control of versus other people. So Mars is about career and reputation, and it's also about creativity, romance, and children. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, you know, some Cancer and Cancer risings will have squabbles with romantic partners. That's kind of like textbook Mars in opposition to Pluto. You know, they don't want to change. I'm getting agitated. I'm upset. But it could also be a client or somebody you work with. It's in Capricorn. It could also be that you're having some kind of conflict with your partner about children or about, you know, commitment. There could be this like kind of like bossiness that could be coming out with Mars in your first house. And really it's about being like in charge of yourself and being very clear about where you're going and what you're doing. And if other people like aren't on board with some of the changes you want to make, rather than like raging war, it's being like, I'm staying on, I have tunnel vision. I'm doing what I'm doing. If you don't want to go along with it, then the relationship's going to have to change. And I think that that may ultimately be what comes up for a lot of people. So it can be somebody you work with. Capricorn could be that. It could be a manager. It could be a client. There could definitely be a lot of back and forth revolving around like sales if you have like your own business, or trying to like appease clients. But your personal drive and identity is at odds with your partnerships right now and how, you know, you relate to other people. And it may bring major transformations in relationships, but also significant confrontations with partners. So just be mindful of that. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You'll have Mars and Cancer in your 12th house in opposition to Pluto and Capricorn in your 6th. So just as a reminder, Mars will go into your sign and then it will retrograde back. Pluto will go into your 7th house of relationships. It will stay. So in the 12th house, you know, the Mars in opposition to Pluto, I see this as like the subconscious versus daily life, but ultimately how some of these things may impact your, you know, your interaction with other people, and like the things that you're hiding or what you're not talking about or what you're keeping to yourself, and how that becomes very visible. And then there can be some challenges you have with others, very similar to what Cancer rising is going through, because you're going to have that opposition next. So internal struggles or hidden motivations with Mars in the 12th house, it can clash with your daily routines or your health concerns, right? Pluto in the 6th. So this might involve a period of introspection or healing, and it can impact your work or your health routine. So this is like a time where you're like, I need more rest, right? And it's also been trining Neptune, you know, so there's definitely been some emotional clearing, healing, resting, recuperating, kind of being behind the scenes. And then boom, it's going to go into your first house. And then you're going to feel a little bit better. But I would say like take care of your health, like mind, body, spirit balance is really important. There can be also like a lot of like emotional or spiritual healing that's kind of going on with Mars in the 12th house, or traveling and being in foreign lands. But the impact that that has on your ability to stay on your diet, stay focused, continue to maintain getting work done, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like if you're traveling, it's like, you know, everything kind of gets thrown off. So there definitely is some sense of like feeling that with that opposition. Your routine gets shaken a little bit. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You're going to experience Mars in Cancer in your 11th house in opposition to Pluto and Capricorn in your 5th house. So for you, Virgo, this is the 11th house of friends, allies, you know, connections, networks, collaborations, your goals. as well as the 5th house of creativity, children, being an entrepreneur, having your own business, also dating, right? And just overall like happiness. So Mars is connected to joint resources, change and transformation, and also communication. So seeing Mars at 29 degrees opposed Pluto makes me feel like, there is this sense of being like, who are my people? Like, who are my real friends? It can feel like there's like a chopping block going on with some of your friends in your life right now. And, it's about whether or not you're connecting with people who genuinely make you feel happy. So, it can be about friends versus, what you actually need or your own creativity. And your social goals and group activities might be in conflict with creative expression or romantic interests. So it could lead to like a transformative experience in love or creative projects brought by or influenced by your social circle. It's like, do you have friends that aren't really crazy about somebody that you're dating? Or do you feel like that there is like a major dramatic change or something shifting revolving around your relationship with your friends because of your love life, or because somebody had a kid, or maybe your children, or your, parental responsibilities that can come up? You can also really feel like you're less consumed with what other people think and what other people want, and you're prioritizing and focusing on more of like your own creativity. And maybe there's a sense of like voicing and like telling other people like, what, I'm not interested in kind of doing that stuff anymore, or like my interests have changed and like my hobbies have changed, and I'm very focused on, stuff that's going to be positive for me in the long term, and the impact that that may have with some of your social groups and your friend groups. Good luck. All right, we have Libra and Libra rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mars in Cancer in your 10th house, coming into opposition with Pluto in Capricorn. So a couple things. Obviously, being a Libra rising, your houses are inverted. So typically we think of like Capricorn 10th house, like Cancer 4th house. So already you see the world as like, I have to balance both things, right? So you may do better with this. It really just depends on your personal aspects. And it may be a little bit of change in both arenas for you. So this is going to feel like, okay, it's, career versus what's going on with like home. And, Mars is connected to your money, possessions, and resources. It's also connected to relationships. So with Mars opposing Pluto, which is also connected to money and resources in your 4th, there's this feeling that's like, it's like Aries, but reversed. Your public life or career ambitions, Mars in the 10th, are kind of clashing with some deep-seated family or domestic changes, Pluto in the 4th. So this could be a time of significant like life restructuring, affecting both home and career. I think about how, Mars is going to go into your 11th house, and then it's going to go back. So I think a lot of like Libra and Scorpio risings are going to have like career status changes. It could be you change jobs, you change careers, you take a break, you take like a bit of like a hiatus, something like that might happen. So the question is, Libra, what's going to change? Do you need to cut back from work or responsibility in some way to focus more on what's going on with home and family? Or is it that there needs to be some really dramatic changes happening, with your home to be able to better support being more focused on like your career? And like parenting things can kind of come up here too. So dealing with your parents, dealing with property stuff, dealing with moving for a new job, or, maybe you are just moved and now you're going to be looking for work. Something like that can kind of be coming up with some of those oppositions for you. Okay. And obviously if you're a late degree Libra or Libra rising, you've been forewarned. You'll feel the pinch. All right, so we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You're experiencing Mars in Cancer in your 9th house, opposing Pluto in Capricorn in your 3rd house. And remember, for you, you're ruled by both. So Scorpio risings, how are you guys doing? How are you feeling with this upcoming opposition? I'd love to know. Basically, the bottom line is here, with the 3rd and the 9th house, it's always about, philosophy and communication. So Mars at the top of the chart is like, okay, I want to be focusing on traveling, learning, doing a certification, a training, going to school, traveling. Something like that is what you're wanting to do. Teaching, writing, publishing. And then the opposition to Pluto in the 3rd is that tension that's like, well, how do I get the words out? How do I start the business? How do I launch the website? How do I start the process of putting like the pen to the paper, you know? So there can be like also broader perspectives kind of coming up where there's conflict with like local interactions or learning. And this period could involve more intense discussions or learning experiences that help transform your worldview. Third house is like people like siblings, neighbors, and the ninth house is going to be about like teachers, mentors, and like law and legality. So you might be like learning more. Maybe you're changing or transforming your media and where you get your news and how that connects and correlates to like global views and like how you're seeing the world differently. Mars will go into Leo. It'll retrograde back into Cancer. So I think there's a huge status change coming or a job change coming for a lot of Scorpio risings. And remember that Mars is not just connected to your physical body, it's also connected to your health habits, routines, where you work, how you're working. So a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings are like focusing on doing some kind of training or developing new skills to make them, I think, even more so successful in what they're doing long-term with their career. And maybe you're having to kind of open your mind, up to what you're learning in order to do that. All right, so we've got Sag and Sag rising. What's up, Sag? You will be experiencing Mars in Cancer opposed Pluto in Capricorn in your 8th to your 2nd house. All right, so for you in Gemini, this is very financial. Essentially, the Mars in the 8th house is dealing with intimacy, banking, loans, change, transformation, psychological things that kind of connect also to healing opportunities. And Mars will oppose Pluto, which is like your personal spending power, things revolving around resources, also your self-esteem. Now, Mars deals with the subconscious of the 12th house, and it's also connected to creativity, children, childhood, romantic partners. So with Mars opposed Pluto, it's almost like there's potentially like a brewing like standoff with another person about money. And I don't know if it's like money that you manage that you're supposed to have access to. I don't know if it's like money and expenses connected to children or a back and forth with a romantic partner in money. Cancer can be about home expenses. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, some of you guys might be like, a partner's money is somehow stepping in and helping me during like a really difficult, financial situation, right? Pluto and Capricorn. Also the topic of like intimacy and values come up. So issues relating to shared resources, intimacy, or transformation can come up with Mars in the 8th house. It may challenge your personal values or your financial situation with the opposition of Pluto in the 2nd, and it could lead to some very significant changes in how you handle money and value yourself. So one thing I will tell you is 8th house is where money becomes due. So with a Mars retrograde there, it's like, okay, taxes being due on a home or a tax matter, having to go and like refinance something or consolidate debt can happen, but also like really putting an emphasis on emotional intimacy and like psychological things coming up and like going deep into that and healing it. So like it's finally taking care of or handling any issues you have with your self-esteem, with your money, like with your stability, and where like other people may kind of come to your rescue and kind of help you work through a difficult, physical or financial situation. I know Saturn's in your 4th, so you guys are definitely, a lot of you guys are feeling that. And if it's not financial, it's going to be emotional. It's going to be psychological. I think of like 8 months in the 8th house and I would be like, what a great time to go to therapy, especially if you're struggling with a broken heart or if there's some stuff that's coming up from your childhood or there's some, issues that you're having revolving around grief or loss. This could be a time where you could have some like miraculous like healing opportunities there. Okay. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. Obviously, Pluto is in your sign. So that means Mars and Cancer is in your 7th house. And this is like where action and will and motivation and other people are challenging you. They're checking you. Mars is about family, right? Home family. It could be roommates. It could be relatives. It could be your partner that you live with. It could also be trying to sell your home for some people because the 7th is your marketplace. So somebody's like, I really want your house. And you're like, it's not for sale, or like they're kind of trying to negotiate with you about a home sale or about a family matter. Mars is connected to groups and other people, as well as your home. And Pluto is connected to groups, friends, and other people. So, seventh house is anybody. Okay, Cancer is family, so it could be like feminine or like female relatives, but it could be your spouse, it could be a client, somebody's gonna be pushing your buttons basically. And with this opposition, it feels like it's like, okay, it's partnership or myself, and like what needs to change? Am I reluctant to change, or am I finally like putting my foot down and driving like a hard bargain? Or is it other people, that need to change? And like, remember, most of the retrograde is going to be happening in Cancer. So that tells me that you have several months to rework or reconfigure something that's going on with your relationships and your committed relationships. Also, people from the past can come back and they can be like, I've changed, give me a chance. I'm better. And you're like, I don't know about that. So definitely the theme of partnerships versus self comes up, and like your drive for partnerships or conflicts therein, Mars in the 7th, could be at odds with a profound personal transformation or identity issue, right? Pluto in your 1st. So this might bring a significant period of personal growth through relationships. Like, I got to tell you, Mars in the 7th house is generally not an easy transit because it's where other people are pushing you. Working with a coach can be really helpful here. And it's going to be people who are trying to encourage you to evolve, to change, to open up, right? And karmic stuff always happens whenever we have retrograde. So I think about how like people might come in that are telling you like, get out of your comfort zone, like open up to me. Like, and it can be a very enriching period for relationships just before Jupiter goes into your 7th house next year. So I feel like there's a lot of karmic relationship stuff happening where some relationships are ending because new people are coming in. Some people are reluctant to relationships, and somebody's going to come in and they're going to be like, you're going to work through this, So it could be good for you guys, but watch out. Some people are just going to be like too hot to handle. Like they're going to want to fight. And, expect the unexpected, where people could be acting like really emotionally, like unhinged with Mars in your 7th house opposed Pluto. All right, we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mars in Cancer in your 7th house in opposition to Pluto and Capricorn in your 12th house. So as a reminder, Mars will go into Leo, okay? So it's going to start for the next month heating up your relationship zone. Pluto goes into Aquarius. So the next opposition will be Pluto in your 1st house, Mars in your 7th house. Go back and listen to Capricorn and what I just said to Capricorn. That's what you have to look forward to, all right? This is about you dealing with stuff kind of behind the scenes, subconsciously, that you're working through emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, even work behind the scenes, and like how that's impacting your sleep, how that's impacting your health, your habits. This is definitely like the actions that you're taking at work and how it's impacting your subconscious. So your daily routine, your work routines, right, Mars in the 6th, is reaching this kind of critical degree where it's clashing with your subconscious fears or spiritual quests, Pluto in the 12th. So it can involve health transformations or work situations that lead to deeper self-discovery. But I just want to remind you also that because you're going to have that ingress into the 12th, it's almost like, partners might be saying to you, like, you can't continue to go on like this. Like, you need to make a change, or you're reconnecting, with health practitioners, or you're getting back into a habit so that way you can have healthier habits. So that way you feel like you have a life of balance. Whenever I see oppositions between the 6th and the 12th, I always tell people, like, if you don't sleep well, 12th house, you're going to have health issues and you're not going to be as productive, 6th house. If you're not organized and you're not productive and getting things done, you're going to be stressed out and you're going to be out of your mind, 12th house. So there is this need for like mind, body, spirit balance. And Mars is about communication, and it's also about career. So I feel like there can be some like really critical, like, okay, we got to get this done. We have to have this meeting. There's lots of details. There's lots of things we have to kind of wrap up. Talking to staff, talking to employees, like trying to stay on a schedule. And like you could be like burning the candle at both ends, and you could be really burning yourself out. So try to find that balance when at all possible, okay? And then finally, we have got our Pisces and Pisces risings, and you guys are going to be experiencing Mars in Cancer coming into an opposition with Pluto in Capricorn. Okay, so it's in your 5th house, opposing your 11th house. And the 5th house is all about creativity, dating, children, fun, self-expression, having a good time. And Mars is connected to money and personal investments, and also travel, what you're learning, going places, and like the bigger meaning of life. So of all of the places to have a Mars retrograde, I feel like this is at least one of the better ones, right? Because it's an extended period of more creativity, more fun, getting back out there and dating, you know, falling in love, spending more time with your kids, like trying to kind of maybe even like build your own business. Like it's a good retrograde. And it's in a water sign, so it's harmonious and it's going to trine, you know, Saturn and Neptune in your sign. Anyway, what I think is that this is about, you know, your creativity, what you're doing, what you're pursuing, what you're passionate about versus other people. And like I've said this before and I'll say this again, you will notice some haters with this transit. You will see some people that you're like, man, they just really aren't, you know, they're not happy that I'm happy. Or they don't support my relationship or like whatever. Like you can see people who can be kind of toxic, right? Pluto. So there can be this sense of like your creative expressions, your romantic pursuits, your children, your happiness, your hobbies is conflicting with like that of your friends or their goals, right? Pluto and Capricorn in the 11th is like, you might have some people who are very business oriented and they're very like professional and you're like, I just want to create art. I just want to have kids. I just want to, you know, like do things that are more expressive. And some people can be like, well, yeah, but how are you going to make any money doing that? You know, and they'll kind of get on your case and you'll be like, ugh. So it can definitely kind of clash with your ambitions. And I think this is leading to like a transformative experience where, you know, you're like, man, you know, do I need to change some of my friends? Like, you know, are my goals changing? Like, how can I focus more on the things that make me happy? Maybe I've outgrown some of my friends. Maybe I need to be connecting with people who are also creators or, you know, people who are creative or other people who are parents or other people who are into performing or like performances in general. Fifth house is the stage. And you're investing more time in that. And you're going to be investing more time into your hobbies. And I would say you got to do what makes you happy. With Mars in the fifth house, it's got to be what makes you happy. Don't worry about what other people think. And the trines to Saturn and Neptune are saying like, I'm doing it for me. So what if I'm not going to be a professional, you know, like comedian? I still want to get out there and do open mic, right? So what if I'm not going to be a professional artist? I still like painting and taking paint classes. I'm going to do it. And don't worry about what some of the haters are kind of saying, okay? Don't take it to heart. With that being said, please don't add any fuel to the fire this week. There is definitely going to be a lot of hostility in the air. There's going to be a lot of tension in the air. Heat, speed, hot water, steam, very Mars in Cancer. Blades, knives, things in the kitchen, right? You know, probably going to see a lot of like parents like squabbling, like older parents and like relatives, you know, like let's try to diffuse some of that stuff. And be mindful that if we're leaning more into some of these trines with Neptune and we're compassionate, we're willing to forgive and we're willing to let go and we recognize it. Sometimes people are being crazy and like sometimes it's like not the good kind of crazy. You're like, I don't think I want to actually like deal with this person crazy because they might like lose it. You will be surprised how reactionary people can be. So please, please, please take your time, be patient, be understanding. When in doubt, you know, just take a step back, take a breath, and go and do some meditation. Find some time alone. Work with water because it's going to help neutralize some of this energy. Because my goodness, all week long, it's in the skies. So I hope that's helpful for you guys for this next week. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Come back. Let me know how the week goes, what you think. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on some of these aspects. Until next time, I will see all of you guys very soon. You guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.